Thanks for joining me for episode 11 of the Field Quiver Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Jody Thibodeau, and it's my goal to help you fill your quiver with God in the great outdoors. Now, before we get into this week's episode with Drew Gregory, let me go ahead and ask you right here, right now, just to take literally 2 seconds. And if you haven't already clicked the follow or subscribe buttons on whatever provider you're listening to the show on, go ahead and do that. And then once you've done that, turn the notifications on so that you'll find out whenever new content drops, right when it drops. If you'd like to support the show in ways other than just listening, then there's several ways you can do that. And the first that I like to ask for is prayer for myself, prayer for the show. Aside from that, if you want to support us financially, then you can pick up some swag from fieldquiveroutdoors.com. And we've only got a few stickers and some Gospel Fly merchandise up right now, but we're looking at adding some more stuff over the next couple of months. If you're looking for other free ways that you can support us, then I've got some good news. There's a couple of more ways you can do it. You can leave us a good rating and review wherever you're listening or watching. And the last thing you can do is share the podcast with somebody you know who may be interested in the topics that we talk about. Now that I've got my sales pitch out of the way of how you can support the show, let's go ahead and talk about what's on my radar over the last couple of weeks since the last episode dropped. First off, we've got the state of Mississippi. They have recently dropped a new logo for Mississippi Outdoors. I apologize for not having looked into what exactly Mississippi Outdoors is to tell those of you who, like myself, are not from Mississippi. But based on the post on Instagram and X to go along with this logo, it sounds like it's their publication or perhaps some sort of a state wildlife or outdoor show. I'm not really sure. Anybody listening from Mississippi, if you want to help me out and save me some time from having to do the research myself, just drop a comment in here below the show, and I would be much appreciative. Moving on from Mississippi, a couple things about South Carolina state parks. First off, if you recall, I talked about the Dashing Through the Park scavenger hunt they did at the end of last year during the holiday season. Well, we got our points to get the goodie bag with our kids, and we just received the goodie bag in the mail this past week. So first off, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. If not, I'll post pictures of these on the Instagram account here in the next couple days. But there's a beanie with the logo on it. We also got a koozie with the Dashing Through the Park scavenger hunt logo on it, and a notebook. So my kids have thoroughly enjoyed playing with this stuff over the last few days and using it since we got it. So if you live in South Carolina and weren't able to participate this year because you didn't know about it, then just keep an eye on the South Carolina State Parks social media accounts and websites for later this year. And also, I'll try and keep up with it and let you know about it through the On My Radar segment as soon as they announce it at the end of the year, if they do it again, which hopefully they do. As far as Colorado, every time I talk about the wolf reintroduction in Colorado, it seems like something new comes out the same day I drop that episode. Well, if you recall in the last episode, I believe I said something along the lines of they've reached the maximum number of wolves that they were able to get from the state that they've gotten their current 10 from, and that they didn't have any arrangements to get the remaining 5 that they wanted to release by March of this year. Well, they made an arrangement with the Confederated Tribes of Colville Reservation to obtain 15 wolves off of the reservation. Now, however, they will not be able to reach their goal of having 15 wolves reintroduced into the state by March because they can't start trying to capture the wolves from the reservation until December of this year. But the agreement says that they have from December of 24 until March of 2025 to capture these 15 wolves to be reintroduced there into Colorado. Last thing on the radar is there's a little bit of drama going on in the fishing tackle industry. Maybe. Now, if you're following Bass Reaper Bait Company on Instagram, this is where I found out about this. Go to their Instagram account and you can read it. But the impression I got from the post that they put on January 19th is that this is a actual email correspondence. I don't know. I can't confirm that. I'm just going off of what I read on their account. But it sounds like they might not be getting paid by Catch Co., which is the parent company of Mystery Tackle Box, because there's apparently a buyout happening with Catch Co. I don't know. That's just the way I'm interpreting this post that they put up. Go and read it yourself. Don't take my word for it. See what you think it means. And if you have any thoughts, then maybe start a conversation in the comments section. But that's it for what's on my radar for this week. Now, let's go ahead and move into this great conversation that I had with professional kayak angler, kayak designer, and he's actually a kayak fishing tournament series organizer and director now. Which he actually helped put on another series in the past, but he's taken that title on again with a new series called the Kayak Adventure Series, which kicks off with Shoaliepalooza this spring. And it's a great conversation about kayak fishing and specifically this new series, and how to catch that shoal bass that's on so many people's bucket list. But without further ado, here's my conversation with Drew Gregory. Hope you guys enjoy it. So on this episode of the Field Quiver Outdoors podcast, I'm joined with Drew Gregory. So Drew, glad to have you with me. And for the folks that aren't familiar with you, go ahead and give us a little bit of a bio and your claim to fame.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, the shortest version. Again, I feel like I'm dating myself now that I have like a long version. There's a lot to say because I've been around long enough to do quite a bit in the fishing industry and kayak fishing. So I will try to condense it for you guys. But basically, started fishing kind of for a living or working in the kayak fishing industry in 2009. And when I teamed up with Jackson Kayak and designed a signature series kayak with them, and kind of the rest is history. Spent a good 10 years with that company and now work with Crescent Kayaks. You can probably see somewhere up there, a little bit of a Crescent logo, and design some boats with them. And of course, doing all that, I do a little bit of everything else, right? I fish tournaments, as you can see, done well in a few tournaments here. So I've got some trophies and checks here behind me. And a lot of people know me from the tournaments. Some people know me from the kayak designs. Some people know me from a show I did called Hooked on Wild Waters for 5 seasons. And then now people know me, I think, again, for developing and starting a new tournament trail. I ran the River Bassin tournament trail for about 7 or 8 years. I don't know, till about, forget what, that was probably 2011, 2012 to 2019. But now I've started something new, which we'll get into later in the show, called the Kayak Adventure Series. And I cannot wait to tell you guys more about that. But that's pretty much it. Blessed to be able to work in this industry for a living and work with a lot of great folks and enjoy God's beautiful creation while I do it.
Awesome. Yeah. And so I am new with kayak fishing myself personally. And one of the things with you is I've actually really been eyeballing ever since I got into it about a year or two ago. The Shoalie kayak that you helped design with Crescent. Tell me about how your relationship with those guys started up and the design of the Shoalie.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like, it's funny how God works, because COVID kind of, I think it changed a lot of things for a lot of people. For me, it changed, basically who I was working with on kayaks, because we didn't know what was going to happen in the world, and things just had to change. So I found Crescent, and they were looking for someone to kind of, do some more specialized fishing kayaks. They have a really good lineup of rec / fishing boats already. They just wanted someone to kind of take it to the next level in terms of fishy features that only someone who fishes is hardcore, and as much as I do, would know how to design. Plus, of course, given 10 years experience doing that already. So it just kind of worked out, and they happen to be based in Georgia, where I'm from originally, even though I live in Northeast Ohio now, where my wife's from. And hey, free babysitting with the grandkids is, for our kids is perfect. And so anyway, we're up here now, and Crescent's down there. It just worked out perfectly. My family's still in Atlanta, so I get to see them. But basically, the concept just came from the fact that, man, I really fell in love with kayak fishing, honestly, when I was in Georgia and was fishing for shoal bass, because it's one of the rare black bass species, largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, Alabama bass, like you go through all of them, and then shoal bass. It's just one of the, there's probably like 9 or 10 official ones now, but it's one of those, and it's only found in Georgia. Pretty much, there's a small population in Florida still in the entire world. And they're not like this little fish that doesn't really pull hard. You wouldn't care about because it gets small. I mean, I've caught a couple over 7 pounds, and they regularly get, 3, 4, 5, and 6 pounds. That is very, very common. So they have big mouths. They get big. They fight hard. That one fish I caught, one of them was 24 1/4 inches. So, I mean, they get as long and as big as, largemouth and other black bass too. So they're a really, really fun fish to catch. Their scientific name is fish of the waterfalls, and they live in some of the most beautiful places with rivers and creeks, and they only live in moving water. So they don't, reside in lakes at all. For whatever reason, they just don't like it. That's not where they spawn. They spawn in the shoals. So hence shoal bass. And their nickname is Shoalie. And of course, when it was time to design a new boat, it was a river focused boat. It was just the most obvious choice. It took me back to my roots. It's where Crescent, is, and of course, why I fell in love with kayak fishing. So, and we're going to have a big event called Shoaliepalooza on the Kayak Adventure Series, which we'll get into later, I'm sure. But that's kind of how the Shoalie came about. And people have loved that boat. And I appreciate every one of you guys who've purchased one and sent me comments about how much you love it. And I would not want to be, I'm obviously biased, but I wouldn't want to be in anything else in moving water, because that's just the type of angler I am. And that's the way I built that boat, to be really just, everything is sleek and laid back, and it's simple and it's not cluttered. My style isn't to have a boat where things are sticking up off of tracks everywhere and rods are sticking up, and that just doesn't work in rivers and creeks. You need things to be like laid down and flat and simple for the rivers. So that's kind of the way I built that boat. And of course you can build it up and make it what you want, but it's a very good boat for, paddling and moving water for sure, with the whole design we have on that sucker.
Yeah, and like I say, that's the one I'm eyeballing, and I'm setting this year. My goal is to set a little bit aside every month, and maybe catch one when Crescent does their big sale at the end of the year, like they've done the last few years. But no, the anybody that's wanting to know more about that particular kayak, they can check it out on the Crescent website. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you did a walkthrough there with the owner of Crescent of the Shoalie, that they can watch the video on YouTube, right?
You should. All the details. I would just go to like you said, the website, and that video is on the webpage for the Shoalie. It's all there. And we're actually, I didn't mention this, which is a good time to mention it. A portion of every sale of a Shoalie kayak goes to the habitat restoration of the shoal bass, and actually, to the fish through the Flint River Keeper, which is the main river that those fish, live in. We also support or starting to support some other, river keepers as well. But anyway, just so you know, like, we're trying to set a new standard in kayak, sales where, hey, let's give a portion of every sale back to the fish, the environment, anyone who's out there protecting the rivers and lakes on our behalf. Because, Drew Gregory, the person, doesn't have enough money to go fight a big corporation who's dumping something that is not good for our health and the fish's health in the rivers. And that's what these river keepers do all around the country. They fight for us and go and take them to court, so we can, have great fisheries and have great water quality, which we all, of course, need. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'll make sure I include a link there to the Crescent website, specifically the Shoalie
Mm-hmm.
kayak in the show notes. But moving on from that, we'll go ahead and go into some of your hardware there around you. You've
Oh
won
yeah.
multiple tournaments, and now I watched I guess it was the big announcement that you guys did toward the end of last year about the Kayak Adventure Series.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be your primary focus now, or are you going to continue doing
Yeah.
the bass tournaments
I will
with
have,
bass?
yeah. So there's 6 events for the Kayak Adventure Series, and in the years past, I usually will fish somewhere between 12 and 14 big tournaments when I wasn't running the Kayak Adventure Series. So now that I am, that takes away 6 full weeks right there. So I obviously have to trim my schedule back from fishing, the tournaments myself. But I am still going to fish the Bassmaster Kayak Series for sure, and also cherry pick an event here and there and some of the other national trails. We'll just have to see which ones I can make, but I'll definitely still fish the Bassmaster Kayak Series, at least for they've got like 6 total, but I'll be at the championship that's held in conjunction with the Bassmaster Classic. I qualified for that last year, and I'll be at three other ones, probably 3 or 4. So yeah, I'm gonna have a little time, but I don't know if I'll be making a run at AOIs and multiple trails and whatnot like I have in the past. But uh, I don't know. We'll
Okay.
see. I get to bring the family with me for the Kayak Adventure Series, and the kids are young, and it's tough being gone 12, 13, 14 weeks of the year when you got young ones who change so fast. And that's actually just tournaments. There's other things we do, like ICAST, our big industry trade show in July, and there's other reasons I have to travel and be away from the family too. So this was really nice, how I can kind of bring the family with me to most all those Kayak Adventure Series events, and then I'm only gone for the handful of other tournaments that I fish.
Okay. Yeah. And so let's just go ahead and move into the new series that you're starting up. I've watched the intro, like
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned. I watched part of the live feed, I think last week it was, and was kind of bouncing in and out with watching it. But it is very family oriented based on what you guys were saying. So,
Yeah.
for folks that might be looking into getting into a multi-day tournament,
Mm-hmm.
since that's what this is, go ahead and fill us in about this particular tournament.
Yeah, so it's really cool. You'll definitely have to go to the website to get all the information at kayakadventureseries.com. But yeah, the brief synopsis on that is it's simply a tournament/festival, and the whole premise and the whole, it's very, very thought out. This is like so calculated. People don't really even realize that how calculated everything about this series is. But it's all about making sure there's built-in time to hang out and just enjoy each other's company, develop friendships, camaraderie. Maybe you need someone to lean on, when things, obviously life is tough. Things happen, man. It's not like, roses and perfect all the time. And this is an event where you can get to know other anglers and build those relationships and those friendships, and your families can as well if you bring your families. And then of course I want to see my goal so that that happens, so that down the road, like, it's changing someone's life, for the better. And the way some of the kayak tournaments have evolved, especially a lot of the bigger trails, and it's not a bad thing, or it's not a knock on those trails, and I still fish them and love them, because that's, I'm highly competitive. But the more money that gets into it and the kind of bigger it gets, the more it becomes like, for example, on the PGA Tour, you don't see a lot of PGA Tour players aren't out having a good time and just taking it easy, and all weekend long just kind of partying, having fun. It's their job. They're taking it serious. They're in bed by a certain time. They're up early. And kayak fishing, when we first kind of got into it and it started to grow at the very, very onset, it was very much about the community. And we had these things called boondoggles. And then I did some river bass and rodeos, or just camp out, hang out. Let's just have fun. Let's fish. Let's don't worry about, the tournament. Now, this is just a combination of both of those. So it's the best of both worlds in the format and the rule set. So many of us got into kayak fishing to fish these wild places like the rivers and the creeks, and other people got into it maybe to fish the lakes, and all of the above are awesome. We just love how diverse and the kayak is, and how different each of us are, our personalities are. So the whole premise is, again, to kind of like highlight the diversity of the kayak and everyone's personalities. And therefore the rules and the format allow you to fish any way you prefer out of a kayak. So if you want to fish rivers and creeks and you want to access at the bridge or a canoe and kayak launch on a wildlife management area or somewhere like that, which is, again, why, I mean, so many people got into the sport, because you can't do that with a boat, right? Only way to fish those places is with a kayak. So we want to keep that as a part of the tournament, but then also highlight and keep the, mini bass boat, with the motors and the live scope and all the electronics and the power poles, torpedoes. We wanted to also, include everything. So it's kind of a cool format, because you can fish the small skinny water and you can fish the big water, but we just want to see, well, how does it all shake out? And you're allowed to portage over obstacles like not man-made, but natural obstacles. So river, a log across the river or a rapid that you're not comfortable running or whatnot. You can portage up and down those kind of things, no problem. And this just allows everyone to fish their style. And then I hope that in our top 10, I really feel like this will be true, that, you got one person that was in a river, one person in the lake, another person in a creek, another person in, fishing offshore in the lake. Another guy said he was in the backwater of the lake or fishing docks on the bank, just all different styles being successful. And I think that's going to happen for sure. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. The coolest part about it really is that, it's sponsored by GoPro. And I feel like one of the coolest parts is the fact that we go to these cool historic theaters for our awards, and every single tournament stop, all 6 are the same. We're all at a very cool historic theater with the marquees and the lights and all that, and these cool downtowns, these kind of medium, small towns that we visit. They seat like 400 or 500 people. There's one actually in Missouri that seats 1,000. And just bringing everyone together there and seeing the pictures and videos of their week, their catches. Obviously, we only have time to show some pictures and videos of the top 10 that we're going to be talking to on stage, but things like that, just making it very different and making that festival, which is pretty much going to happen on Saturday at every event on Saturdays. Bouncy houses, food trucks, games, music, drinks, Toyota truck demos, kayak demos, vendors and merchants, all that for the community and the friends that come and the family and all the anglers. So it's pretty cool. And the last thing I'll back up to say about it, and then you can ask me some more questions, is simply the way we have structured it to where there's no doubt about people are going to be able to hang out and enjoy each other's company and fellowship and not be stressed that they're losing ground on the tournament, is the fact that we're starting the event. Our opening ceremonies is on Thursday night, and that's always at a restaurant or a brewery or somewhere we can kind of hang out and have fun. Right. And then basically Friday, the event actually starts at 3 p.m, 3 to 7. So there's no pre-fishing allowed on Friday morning until that 3 o'clock time. So what does that do? Well, that allows us, after we check everybody in at that opening ceremonies, the registration and check-in, and a little rules question and answer on Thursday, that allows people that Thursday to hang out as long as they want at that particular location we're at, restaurant or wherever, and know that they're not losing ground. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. the next morning or 5 a.m. You could be out and hang out in fellowship all you want. There's nothing really you can't do on Friday morning. You know what I mean? So there's no reason to leave. So that's one time of real good fellowship with the anglers. They come together. And then Friday morning, there's an optional breakfast seminar series where I bring in some big names. I'm sure I'll do some big names in the industry, some biologists, some, top tournament anglers, instructors. And we have a seminar series. There's 3 seminars that last 45 minutes over breakfast that next morning. So if you want to kind of, it's only at 10 o'clock. It's not super early. So again, if you were out late the night before, no big deal. You can still have plenty of sleep and come to that breakfast and recover and hang out. And then it ends around 12:30. So you got plenty of time to still get on the water by 3. And you have a little short 3 to 7 afternoon session. It's a 5-fish tournament between both days. So, if you don't really catch anything on Friday, or if you can't even make Friday, it's not the end of the world. Most tournaments are just one day for 5 fish. So it's just a little bonus fishing time. And then it also allows us to fish the afternoon and the evening bite, which is kind of cool in a tournament and part of a weekday. So that's probably less local pressure on the waters. And then Saturday, it's normal fishing day for a tournament, 6:30 around 6:30 in the morning until 3 p.m. And like I said, the festival will start around 2 or 3 and then go till we go to the awards around 6 o'clock at the theater. And then after the awards are over, we're going to go to an after party, a designated after party location on Saturday night. And like Thursday, think about this, like Thursday, Jody, there is no reason on Saturday that everyone shouldn't be back there at that festival and the awards. And they wouldn't want to be. I mean, everyone should want to be because it's a lot of fun. We're all getting together and it's Saturday. It's not Sunday. We don't have to get back to work on Monday, like get on the road as fast as possible, which, is unfortunately it is the case for these bigger tournaments that are 2 days because we do have full-time jobs. We do have to get on the road. If we don't cash a check, there's no reason to be back at wherever they're holding the awards. So really it's mainly just the people that are there to receive their awards, and that's fine. But we just, again, our focus on this series was that camaraderie and that fellowship. So we wanted to make sure we ended on Saturday so that people could be there celebrating and applauding their, friends on stage, or, obviously if they go on stage too, and have a true stage and just the confetti or smoke, going off in a really cool place for the anglers to get presented with the awards. So that's kind of the idea and why that format is the way it is. And so some people might say, well, it's a bummer. I might have to take a Friday off at work. But the reality is we have a pretty cool pre-fishing format, like a practice fishing period, right? So the 2 weeks prior to our tournament starting, so 2 Fridays prior to the tournament Friday, you're allowed to fish 4 days within that window, and you pick the 4. So it's really kind of cool because that allows people to, if you live, hour, 2, 3, 4 away, you can go travel on Friday after you get off work and fish Saturday and Sunday to practice fish the area, and then do it again the next weekend. And that's your 4 days right there. Saturday, Sunday, if you want to not take off work, right, at all. Yeah. And then come in on Friday and just take that 1 day off work, obviously the 1 day, and that's it. So in another tournament or other tournaments where it's like you can only fish the 3 days or 7 days prior, you have to take off that whole week of vacation to like pre-fish. So this at least gives you that option to still do that if you need to or want to, or if you live 15 hours away, then you're definitely going to do that option. You can't get there, the weekends before. So it actually allows you to use less vacation time instead of more as well. So even though it is a Friday that we start, so that's a couple cool things. We also have a lot of other divisions to enter. The team division, we have a smallest 5 fish, the micro bag division. And by the way, the team division, I think I said it's 2-man. So again, promotes that camaraderie, lets you ride with somebody from your area, kind of travel together. You don't have to fish together, but obviously a lot of people do who are on a team, and you can enter the individual division and the team division. You can enter them both. You can enter it all and the micro bag. And there's just a lot of cool kind of extra stuff like that going on and ways to win that you guys can check out on the website.
Yeah. And I like the format with some of the rules that you mentioned that are going to be unique to this. And I think one of them was that you can actually troll while you're moving from point to point and have 2 rides going at a time.
You can, a lot of unique stuff like that. If you read the rules, a unique AOI format, and we'll go over the stops if you want. Angler of the Year format is pretty cool too, because we have 5 regular season events and then a finale, which we call Broodstock. That's our name for our Bassmaster Classic, if you will. And you just have to fish 2 of the 5 to get in that AOI race. That's it. If you fish 3 or 4, that just give yourself, a throwaway, like a mulligan tournament. And that also applies for the team of the year. So there's a team of the year awards and point race and angler of the year. So you fish 2 of the 5, and then you go to the finale. And the finale is the one that everyone has to be at and fish. And then we crown the angler of the year and the team of the year there based on the points of those 3 events, So pretty exciting, cool stuff going on over there. And we'll see, how it goes this year. But so far, a lot of good positivity and a lot of momentum with it. And, having some big companies on board and the fishing industry and outside of the fishing industry is pretty cool for sure. So we'll just have to see how it all shakes down.
Okay, and I just want to mention this for any listeners that haven't checked out the website yet or seen any of your live videos, but you guys are planning on having these tournaments in different places each year, right? So that if
Yeah.
something's not necessarily close to where somebody lives this year, there may be something closer next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want, I got the
Yeah,
screen up here. If you want to share my screen, you're welcome to.
yeah.
But if you go to, I'll just quickly show you the events because that way everyone here watching can see where we're going to be. All right, let's start with, you can click on the events tab here and see them all right there. It's May 3rd and 4th. We've got Shoaliepalooza in Thomaston, Georgia. And man, one of the things we didn't even mention, which again, I could go on and on all day. There's so many things to say about the series. And I know we don't want to go forever, but the every one of these events will be have like a kayak manufacturer, an official kayak manufacturer that sponsors it. So Shoaliepalooza, when you click on it here, May 3rd and 4th, 2024 in Thomaston, Georgia, you click on it, you see it's sponsored by Crescent Kayaks. And that makes sense. We make that Shoalie like we've already talked about. But what happens is at this event here, we're going to raffle off a Shoalie. You can see some Shoal Bass right here. But you can, we're going to raffle off a Shoalie kayak for, and that's a good picture of one there. There's my wife with like a 5-pounder. So you can see how big those fish get. But we'll raffle off one of these Shoalie kayaks for pediatric cancer. That's our charity for this first season. And you know, that's pretty important part of the series that we didn't really talk about. We're raising money for pediatric cancer, and every single kayak manufacturer has donated a kayak for each event, you know, the one that they headline sponsor, to be raffled off for cancer. And that's pretty cool. We're also raising money for the local river keepers, like I said earlier, that we give money to for every sale of the Shoalie kayak. So we'll raise some more money for them at these events as well. And most all the events have a partnering local club. Like this is Peach State Kayak Anglers here. So, and you can scroll down and see every page, you know, it's got pictures of the theater we're going to be at and a detailed itinerary. It's got that live stream listed there, like you talked about the preview video. So it's pretty much like you can't mess up. It's got, you know, all the eligible water that's in bounds here on your eligible water map. It's pretty, very, very detailed, and you can just see how beautiful, you know, this area is here. So that's going to be a fun one. And it even has stuff listed for non-fishing activities and sites to see for the family when they come. And we're going to have an excursion for the family as well. So a designated excursion on Saturday. So you guys definitely don't want to miss any of these events. In June 7th and 8th, we'll be in Michigan, Whitehall, Michigan for Wild Whitehall. And that's going to be a fun one. July 12th and 13th, it's called Ozarkana in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. And then August 9th and 10th is the Fiesta on the Susky in Towanda, Pennsylvania. That's the the north branch of the Susquehanna River, right near the border, pretty close to the border of New York. And there's some New York water that's even abounds in that event. And September 6th and 7th, Wisconsin River Fest in Sauk Prairie, Wisconsin. And we'll basically be featuring the Wisconsin River there. And then Broodstock is October 4th and 5th in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And every one of these stops, except for, I want to say the Susquehanna, every one of them has lakes and bounds, several lakes and bounds, as well as the rivers and creeks that feed them and the rivers and the creeks that are in the area. So it's kind of like a radius, but it doesn't really set like a radius. It's just, we put the core bodies of water that are in bounds on that map. And then we tell you anything that's free flowing into that is fair game. And then we just put an upstream and a downstream launch boundary. Once we get to the point where that boundary is an hour away from that theater that you got to get back to, we want you back to for the festival and the fun. So that's kind of how it works. And those are the stops. And I cannot wait to see you guys at these events because it's going to be a real good time.
Okay, yeah, and hopefully, Shoaliepalooza. I'm looking into the possibility of coming down. Probably won't participate in it, but maybe bringing the kids down and checking it out because of the festival atmosphere. Having something for the whole family to do. But so let's assume that I am wanting to enter into the tournament. This would be my first ever kayak tournament. What are some tips and suggestions? What are the things that I need to make sure I've got to even have any possibility of success?
Yeah, I mean, aside from that, just a general understanding and knowledge of the bass and you know where it lives and all that stuff, which is like a lifetime worth of research and figuring out. You gotta have that kind of part down. But I will say, at some point, you just got to jump in a tournament, because you're never going to get better until you start participating in some, right? So, and this is a good event if you're a beginner, which is the crazy thing. Like I said, everything is so well thought out with this series, because we're going to have a lot of the best anglers in the country fishing this, because the individual division is $150, and there's a 2-man team division that's $150, which is $75 a person, right? So basically, if you bought into the team division and the individual, you're spending $225. If you do that and you start to get 200 and 300 people in a tournament, somebody's walking away with 5 figures. So you're going to have a lot of the top anglers who really kind of, and that's exciting, because they're celebrities to a lot of folks out there, and being around those guys and having the time built into fellowship like we have, you're going to learn from them. So coming to these events, if you want to, if you're, just get into a tournament and you don't want to spend $150 and then another 75 for the team, you can just enter. There's a couple things you could do. Enter just the team division, which is only, again, $75. So for you and between you and your partner, separately, making 150. So that's only $75, right? Or if you just want to enter the micro bag division, which again, it's the 5 smallest bass with a minimum of 5 inches. So it's only $25. So it gets you to be a part of the weekend and experience a tournament and how to measure fish and take pictures, and all the mistakes you can maybe get and all the bugs you can kind of get worked out if you just fish that micro bag or fish just the team division. You know what I mean? Because then you're just out $75 instead of $200 or $300 something dollars, So that's one suggestion. The other thing you could do, which you probably noticed on the site, or you guys will see, there is a side pot Sunday tournament that's $25. So you could, and that is your biggest 5. So if you wanted another little bit of practice, someone like you would come to an event, maybe you show up on Friday, you attend a seminar, you learn some stuff, some cool stuff. You're around, or you can even show up as early as Thursday for the opening ceremonies too, just to get around a lot of these anglers that you can sort of glean some lessons off of them, right? And get to know them, become friends with them. But anyway, Friday you got the seminars you could do. You could, Saturday, of course, you could be there and just be a part of the whole festivity, and just fish the side pot Sunday tournament if you want to do that. So it's just lots of options. But basically, you need to work on fishing tournaments to get better, and that means time management and knowing just when to kind of, I guess, basically leave an area. When is it, which takes kind of a little bit of time, and also it lets you go through the whole process of pre-fishing and scouting and stuff like that. It's all just a learning experience. So you got to get just time on the water and learn the fisheries and just practice doing them. Obviously, there's other things like, tethering your catch board. If you don't have a Shoalie, the Shoalie's got a built-in spot it's pretty hard for that to fall out, and doing things like that. Time management, it's all just part of getting out there and sort of doing it, really. I'm sure there's some other specific stuff that I could get into or answer maybe on, if you have any thoughts about it, just with your gear, for example, or baits or something like that. But
yeah,
I don't know.
And
anything else?
No, I mean, as far as with the Shoalie specifically, if somebody's got that on their bucket list for a species they want to get, they want to check it off. What is something that you find is tackle wise is easiest and I guess the most likely to get some catches? Is there one particular lure over another?
Well, in May, at that particular tournament, that time, May 3rd and 4th, it would be a good time to get a topwater in your hand. If the water is up and murky, which it could be, just depending on the rain, that's a little bit more of a bright, loud sort of, bright white and chartreuse spinnerbait, chatterbait sort of bite. Big swim baits, they really, they have big mouths. You probably saw in those pictures, they really do get big. So they eat really, really giant baits, kind of like, it's not quite as big as a largemouth's mouth, but it's very big. So you can throw very giant baits and they will hit it. And the murkier the water, those tend to work a little bit better because they can kind of feel them and sense, those baits in the water a little bit better. So that's a good one. And obviously going to, Shoaliepalooza, that's one reason we kicked off this whole series there is because so many people want to cross that off that bucket list. And this is definitely like, the best time to be in Georgia to catch a shoal bass. That's when they're the most aggressive. They're a little bit more concentrated in certain areas. So you're going to have some fun, but a buzz bait and a big topwater, bait works really good. If it, like a plopper style, Chapo, something like that. Zara Spooks, they love that kind of stuff. Buzz baits can't go wrong. And of course, who doesn't love topwater?
Yeah. And so I guess let me ask you this also, as far as your personal preference when you're targeting the shoalies, what do you like to use as far as rod and reel setup?
I typically will use like a 7'3" kind of range, 7'6" maybe, for some of those bigger baits and longer casts and heavier, swim baits and stuff like that. But I usually have like 30-pound braid on there. If it's a topwater, I might have 40, maybe even 50, but 30-pound braid with a medium heavy 7'3" kind of action rod and just get after it and power fish. That's what I love to do. They will eat, your Ned rigs and your craw, TRD craw from Z-Man or the stuff on the bottom like that, trick worms and, all kinds of baits like that. They will definitely eat it, crawfish jigs. But my preference is just to move down the river and hit a lot of targets, as much as I can and power fish. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Okay. And now let me ask you this about the series as far as rules. I haven't had a chance to sit down and actually read through all the rules yet. But say somebody wanted to bring a canoe. Would they be able to enter in a canoe?
Yeah, if you read the rules, technically you can be in a canoe. And the reason, again, when we made every rule, we simply thought about, like the trolling and the two rods, trolling. We thought, why in kayak fishing do we not allow trolling? It just doesn't in fishing for bass, because it's not like it's some great advantage, and it's not, you know what I mean? And the two rods at once, it's like we want you to be able to catch that shoal bass that's following your other shoal bass when you have one on. I know this is like a high level tactic here. I get that, but it happens more than you think, or the opportunity for it to happen more than you would think. You see another smallmouth or a shoal bass or an Alabama or spotted bass, following, or another largemouth, a bigger one following, the bait, the one that you have hooked. We want you to be able to toss in and catch that fish. So getting back to your question, we allow canoes because we thought, well, wait a second, a sit inside kayak that's rotomolded, that's made out of plastic, is nothing more than a canoe. That's all it is. And why would we not want people in canoes to be able to participate? Because that only means that more people will probably be in the event. If more people are at the event, that's a bigger party and just more fun we all have, right? And that means the pot gets even bigger for everyone too. Now, the reality is, you might say, well, those canoe companies don't support the kayak fishing, community. And I would argue and say, we all know that a kayak is a better tool to fish out of than a canoe. Like, we know that. So why not get a few canoe people at every event that already maybe they fish the event because they already have a canoe, but they don't have a kayak. And then they see all these kayaks and all the incredible technology and features that are on these kayaks and how comfortable they are. You can't tell me we're not going to convert people from canoes into kayaks. Just trust me. I know we will. It's going to work more that way than it is the opposite way. So why not? So since there was no reason to not allow it in that, aspect, we said, let's just allow it. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think you'll probably see folks that would be similar circumstance to me. Like, I've got a couple of boys that would be interested in participating. We don't have tandem kayaks. They're not old enough to be able to go out in a kayak on their own and really get around. So if we were to do it as a two-man team, we'd probably be showing up in the canoe just so that they could get around to fish. But I think that's awesome that you're allowing that.
I think so.
Because
cool.
like you say, it does open up that many more people to be able to do it. But now that we've talked about fishing a good bit, and you mentioned early on God working in getting you with Crescent, let's talk a little bit about your faith adventure.
Sure.
How did you come to know Christ? Just give us your story.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. I mean, I come from a family that, my dad is a minister, my parents, are ministers, if you will. And, my dad has done lots. He's, taught seminary. He's wrote a book. He's been he was actually on staff at First Baptist Atlanta for a while, the counseling center, which is actually how he ended up in Atlanta, because we were from Texas originally. And, he's just done so much, and now just has his own ministry and is done like mission trips, a lot of mission trips overseas, training leaders and in other countries and counseling with pastors and wives. So I've been around it all my life. I went to a Christian university, Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, and have an undergrad degree in youth ministry. But I think what's cool about it really is that, I can't say I've never we all kind of have to like figure some stuff out for ourselves when you get older. You know what I mean? It's not like just because mom and dad said so, I just like took it and just, ran whatever. But at the same time, it's like, man, I kind of just like grasped it and I got it since I was young, and I understood the principles, and I could see, and I mean, I could just, and maybe it's because I had other people in my life that I could see making some of the, I would say some mistakes that either hurt them or others. Right. And it wasn't good for them. So I kind of learned some lessons without having to do it myself. Right. But I also then translated that to, oh, wait a second, that's exactly what this lesson in the Bible is about. You know what I mean? So I kind of like got to see some of that was, but it's a cool story in the fact that, man, once you really grasp and you get it, that it just like, you don't really want to go chase anything else, because you know that it's a dead end. You know what I mean? And the cool thing about, even like this Kayak Adventure Series, we've got a built-in faith fellowship time. It's usually a 30-minute window before the awards begin at the theater. So maybe in the balcony or whatever. And people are welcome to come and be a part of that. And the cool thing about the Kayak Adventure Series is just that, we're not like pushing anything. And that's just not really, my style. I don't even feel like biblically, it's not really, really the style either. I mean, Jesus just loved everyone. He just showed his love. And then the Bible talks about, if you seek, you will find. And I just want to encourage people, personally, if they want to talk to me, of course, or whatever, that's different, but just encourage people to get out there, enjoy God's creation, and just continue to seek and search, because there's no way in the world that we are sitting here on a ball that's hovering in space with this sun that's whatever many millions of whatever miles away, or thousands or whatever it is of, I mean, I don't like, and if we were X number of miles closer to that sun, or X number of miles further away, our planet would be too cold to survive, or we would burn up. It's like, there's no possible just comprehension in my mind that there is a God, of course. And if you seek, you will find. I believe in the Bible says that. So my whole faith story is just about like, I'm authentic. I am who I am. I'm not going to like, I've got friends of all different faiths and all, some that have no faith, and that's like totally fine. But I'm just encouraging everyone, just keep searching and keep seeking, because I know that they'll find it eventually. You know what I mean? And it's just too, this whole planet, it's just crazy. All this, my son's been into space even more lately. So it's gotten me thinking even more about just how insane it is that we are here. I mean, and we just take that for granted every day. We don't think about it. We're just, it's something that we're just kind of like immune to at this point. And really the reality is nothing can't like create something, you know what I mean? Like there has to be something, you know what I mean, at the beginning. And obviously the hardest part of that is, well, then who created God? You know what I mean? And that's where the Bible and God just says, but that's the part you just have to like, it's faith, and it says childlike faith. Well, that's the only way you could potentially, our brains can't comprehend that. You know what I mean? Well, because you could also make that argument, who created God then? You know what I mean? So in my mind, yeah, there's no doubt like, a creator. And I just love to encourage people to get out there and seek, and you're going to find it. And maybe someone finds something at a Kayak Adventure Series event, and a person that shows them the love of God, and that changes their life. And, I just really hoping that this right here, getting and bringing people together in person can get a lot of that sort of stuff going in the community. And I think it's been a good thing for so many others, because back at the River Bass and Tournament Trail and other series I ran, the stories I still hear from people that got connected there, and it's changed their lives. And some it's a faith like connection, some it's not. And really it doesn't matter either way. It's just bettering people's lives in general is what we're all about here. And yeah, my faith story is pretty cool in the sense that, I ended up, just continuing to realize without having to go hit some complete rock bottom, like you hear some people's stories, right? Before kind of God just, that's God shaking you up. You know what I mean? Like, and I've had a lot of rock bottoms in my life, but having the faith that I have, those rock bottoms, like I'll tell you the coolest story now is like one of them is, well, I was working at a university. I got my master's degree after my undergraduate in youth ministry from Lee. I got my master's degree from Georgia State in sports management, and I was working at a university in North Georgia. I bought my first home. I got this cool little view of the mountains, and it was an interim position technically, but I went ahead and bought a home there because I love the job. All the students at the university loved me. My family was 30 minutes away. My niece, my nephew, man, I'm here forever. I love it. My feet are propped up. This is great. And it was happy and content. Well, remember I told you it was an interim job, right? But they had to hire a full-time person, and all the students, it was kind of like a no-brainer. Oh, well, Drew's going to get the job. I mean, everyone, but for whatever reason, my boss there decided to go a different route, and it just shook my world up because I just committed to buying a home there. And so when I did that, it caused me to leave and move to South Carolina for 5 years and take a similar position at a different university. And there was no one there like my age. My family wasn't there. There's nothing to do but fish. That's it. I mean, it's just the students at the university and basically like me and hardly anybody else my age in my mid 20s there. So I just fished, I fished. And that honed my skills. And I was starting to build a brand online on forums and places I was posting and got into kayak fishing, obviously. And just built this, what I didn't realize God had made that happen all to engineer this change into allowing me to be able to fish for a living. And if that original rock bottom moment didn't happen, losing your job out of the nowhere like that and didn't know where you were going to go, then I would never be here. You know what I mean? So, but isn't it funny how at the time you're like just frustrated at God, you're cursing God. You're like so mad at, the world and everything. How could this happen? But now it's like the opposite. You were crying tears of sadness and frustration and anger, if you will, like the first time. But now if I look back on that event, I really want to like think about my life now and where it's led me with my family and like I would cry tears of joy for that event. But without faith and knowing that God's in control, it doesn't mean I, didn't freak out and I wasn't mad and wasn't angry, but I learned a valuable lesson then. So now in the future, when the world falls apart and COVID happens and I lose what I had going with Jackson, and where am I going to go now? And I've got 2 kids and everything to support. At least I know, dude, I don't even care anymore. Like, I'm just like, whatever, God's got it. I'm not worried about it, So it's definitely cool to see like that live out in your everyday life. You know what I mean? How you can trust that he's got you and that he is, your heavenly Father who loves and cares for you. And you kind of have to, it's hard. It's super hard to do and believe that when something bad happens. But I'm telling you, if you believe in him, he did all that he did for us and died on the cross and did all that so that we could have that burden lifted off our shoulders. You know what I mean? Like to not stress and worry about all these things in life. And when we as Christians don't like do that and we're stressed and worrying like crazy, it's almost just like, come on, man. Like he didn't do that all for nothing. He did it so you could just relax and like just enjoy and know that he's got it. And so there's a fine line definitely to, well, what do? You just sit around and do nothing all your life and just float around and not care about things? Of course not. But you know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, you do have to know, and deep down in your heart, he's got you. It's going to be okay. And it's just going to lead you somewhere greater and something cooler. And it's, of course, led me to a lot of different places and a lot of cool friendships. And now this Kayak Adventure Series and Crescent, and it's been awesome. And, we'll see where it goes from here, man.
Oh yeah. And just kind of coming off of that before we go into the last segment with the Me Too, something that I've started asking guests is what is a way that I and other listeners can pray for you, support you through prayer? What's a good prayer request for you?
Oh man, just, this is a big thing we're putting on this year. GoPro's the headline sponsor. That's a big deal. I've got, a lot of all the sponsors, when you guys see them as sponsors, you got to think, to me, they're bosses. They're like, they're expecting a return on what's happening there. And so basically, I guess my kids are right there. It's funny. I don't know if you could hear them or not, but, so just prayers for, making sure everything goes smooth this first year, as smooth as possible. And a lot of people come and have fun, because at the end of the day, just that's the idea. Have a big party, big celebration. So
Okay, cool. Well,
yeah.
on that note, we'll move into this real quick, and just it's a segment called Me Too. It's just a
All
few
right.
questions I ask everybody, and then I'll let you pick a few numbers for the last few questions.
All right.
But and that's fine with you kids. I keep waiting on mine to bust in at
Yeah.
any minute myself. But first off, what's your favorite Bible story?
Oh gosh, favorite one, man. That's a good one. There's so many. Hang on, guys. Dad is trying to focus here. Hang on. You guys can head back upstairs. I'll be up there soon. Okay, go get ready. We're gonna go to that birthday party. Yeah. I mean, gosh, dude, that is such a good question because there's so many good ones that I almost wish I had these in advance just to find like my favorite. But I mean, I don't know. I think, man, gosh, there's so many good ones. I bet you. I don't know. I've got to pick one, so I gotta do it, I guess. But I guess like, there's something about the feeding of the 10,000, or maybe like, the parable about casting your net as a fishing one. Cast your net on the other side, and Andrew is I'm named Andrew. I'm a who's a fisherman in the Bible, so I don't know, just torn. But I would just say like the feeding of that to me is a 5,000 or 10,000. That's the one that just gets me because in my life, I've seen how God has basically like just whenever we needed something, because it's a risk to, do what I do now in this industry. It's not like you don't get rich in the fishing industry, right? It just doesn't happen. It's a fun, whenever you work in sports and outdoors, the problem with that is, no one makes a ton of money unless you're actually like the corporation that owns all the entities. So I've seen how God is just keeps making things work, making ends meet. When we need a check to come in to cover this, it's there. And that's just like his provision. He's taking care of us our entire life. And that's always a good one for sure. And yeah, I'll just pick that one for now. But yeah,
All right.
it's a tricky question.
Okay. What's the favorite state or national park or other outdoors venue that you've ever visited?
Probably that's a good one. I would say, man, there's a lot of good ones I've visited, but I've been to Yosemite. That was incredible. But Bryce Canyon was really good in Utah, just totally different from anything on the East Coast, where I've lived all my life. So that one was really, really magical place. It was really cool if you've never gone to that one. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, those two were really incredible for sure.
Okay. And what is a food that you would consider a staple in your cooler whenever you're going out on a fishing trip?
Well, this is a really great question because I have a unique one that people always laugh at me, and then other people actually get it and they start doing it themselves. I just grab, especially in tournaments or any day, really, you're out there fishing and working hard, paddling hard, using a lot of energy. I actually get the can of Campbell's Chunky Soup or Progresso, the pop top lids, and just drink it straight out of the can. Straight out of the can. People think that's gross, but I'm telling you right now, when you're out there on the water, you don't even notice and you don't even care. It just tastes amazing. So,
all right. What is it, something on your outdoor bucket list that you really want to check off?
Probably fishing the upper Mississippi River above like Minneapolis, like the upper section. Really good smallmouth fishing up there. Never been there. It's one of the few places I've not been that I know is really, really good. So,
okay.
I'll say that one.
And this is a personal preference. Which term are you using, Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
I'm going to go, man, I think I've never thought about this, but I think,
Yeah.
I'm going to say,
if you're just out using it, which one do you use?
I think I use Bigfoot. I do say Bigfoot more.
Okay. Now follow up, is Bigfoot real?
Bigfoot real?
Yeah. Now there's no right or wrong questions. You think Bigfoot actually exists?
Oh yeah. Oh, is Bigfoot real? Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why. Oh gosh, no, I don't think so, man. I'm not a Bigfoot believer or a Loch Ness monster believer or any of that stuff. I mean, I just feel like we would have really actually had one now, if it, you know what I mean, if it's true.
Oh yeah. All right. What's a outdoor slang term that you've either had to explain to somebody or somebody's had to explain to you or think you would need to explain?
I don't know if it's a slang term per se, but the broodstock term, the name for our championship, it's a fishing term. I don't know if you've heard of it or know what it is, but some people have, some people haven't. So I was explaining that the broodstock is the fish that the State Department of Natural Resources, the fisheries biologists, they shock up with their shock boats fish in the lakes, and they capture, the biggest ones in a net. As they float up to the surface, they get the biggest ones when they're capturing what's called their broodstock. And the biggest ones have the biggest genetics. And if you obviously spawn those two together, they bring them back to their state, fishing ponds. Well, not fishing. They're just the state, what's the word I'm looking for? You know what I'm talking about?
The hatcheries.
Spawning hatcheries. That's their
Yeah.
hatchery. Perfect. They take them back to the hatcheries. They put them together in a certain pond, and then they spawn. And basically that's that. Then they stock their babies into, all the fisheries around the country, or that state, I guess, whichever state they're in. So broodstock is a term that's kind of a fishing term that, people just, don't really always get. So I guess I'll kind of cheat with that one.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. And if you could only own and use one style of fishing setup for the rest of your life, what would it be? A bait cast, spin cast, or fly?
Definitely a bait caster. Probably a 7'3", medium heavy.
Okay.
With like a 30-pound braided line, and just you could do anything with it. At that point, you could flip and pitch and punch and chatterbait and spinnerbait. I mean, it's not the perfect for the punching or flipping, whatever, and heavy cover, but you could pull it off. Right. If you just had to have one, that would do it.
I got you. All right, now go ahead and give me a number between 1 and 15.
14.
14. All right. How do you get your caffeine fix? Coffee, energy drink, soft drink, coffee, or something else? Coffee.
It's coffee guy for me. So it's weird. Sometimes I'll drink it just straight black, and I like it like that. And then other days I'll say, I'll mix it up, make me a little frou like Starbucks kind of drink, and just mix in all the chocolate and everything else. So it just depends on the mood.
Okay. Give me another number between 1 and 15.
8.
8. All right. What is a rule that you'd include in a bass tournament? Which obviously all we got to do is go to their website, and we can see all of that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just be allowing. So every rule in every tournament and every sport, forget tournaments, any sport, like the football, the shape of the football, that's a rule. If that wasn't, that actually is a rule. And so it's the purpose is to keep the sport, like why it originally got made before it was actually a competitive sport. So like, for example, the fact that you're allowed to forward pass and run the ball in football, those are rules. If you took away the forward pass, you'd be left with rugby. But basically, you're just running the ball. So it's not that much different than rugby. Well, they have to put those rules in there to keep the sport. And for fishing, and kayak fishing in particular, the way it grew and what makes the kayak unique, and it makes the sport, is its ability to go skinny and shallow, but also its ability to go out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, which I fished, and the Gulf and the Atlantic, in the middle of Lake Lanier or Lake Fork or Lake, you name it, Gunnersville. It can do it all. So to keep the sport, the rule set that I would do, which we've done with the Kayak Adventure Series, is make sure that the anglers who fish both of those styles, accessing at a river or bridge or canoe and kayak launch or wildlife management area, you can do that legally on a Saturday, and that's what people do. So that is in the rules. And then also you can fish out in the main open water with electronics and motors and all that stuff too. That's keeping the sport. So
okay,
let's answer that one.
And then we'll just wrap up with one more question. Go ahead and give me one last number.
I'll do 2.
2. What is your ideal camping setup? A camper, a tent, or open sky, like a hammock, or just laid out around a campfire?
I feel like the older I get, the more like it staircases up from open to like camper, and then like now the camper all the way now. So I would say now I'm getting a little bit like lazier and older, just more comfort is important. I think the camper, because even at the tournaments now we get Airbnbs where we split the cost, and it's just as much as a campground anyway. So anyway, but yeah, man, that's it. Camper for me.
Awesome. Great. Well, Drew, I really appreciate your time and sitting down and letting me pick your brain on all these topics. I know we've talked about a whole lot, but I appreciate it. I've learned a lot. I know the listeners have learned a lot as well. And again, thank you.
No problem, man. Well, I look forward to seeing you guys or possibly you at the Shoaliepalooza, and all you guys listening, maybe at a Kayak Adventure Series tournament this year. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be seeing you here in a couple of months.
All right. See ya.
See ya.